You received a call from an inmate at the Department of Corrections. This call will be recorded and monitored. If you wish to block any future calls of this nature, dial 7 now. To accept this call, press 5 now. To decline this call, hang up.
Well, hello, Mr. Wall. Oh, I'm doing just fine. The battle continues. How's everything going for you? Well, I have heard some good stuff that's been going on over there, and so it does warm my heart to hear that you're not being harassed as much, and a lot of the medication is being properly dispensed. Well, yeah, they're all human, and so there's going to be little issues here and there, and it's baby steps, but we can't let down. This is something that will never end. Even if every day they follow all our policy and they treat people with respect and they're courteous and kind, we still got to keep knocking on that door, and we still got to keep checking on it, because the government doesn't keep tabs on these facilities. They're pretty much free to do whatever they want. So if anybody's going to check them, it has to be us. Yeah, I know, but for those of us who are prison advocates, it's what we do. And so continually checking up on them and taking in feedback from you guys, it's just, it's common for us, and we welcome it. But you guys shouldn't have to suffer and then get the relief you need. It should be that we need to prevent it. And if we see signs of something happening, if they lose a bunch of staff members, then we know that there's going to be a problem with security, or with the medical facilities and treatment. And I don't want that, especially visitation. And I know some of the emails and letters that we send out are delayed because they're checking through them, and on the weekend they usually have a smaller staff, but that's no excuse. Like I tell a lot of people, if you can't provide the staff to follow policy and to give the people the proper care and attention that they need, then you should not be sending people to prison. You should find some other way. And not everybody needs to be in that prison, especially for long periods of time. It's just ridiculous to be sending people in there for 10, 20 years for relatively minor, nonviolent offenses. And I think we can reduce the prison population and cut back on recidivism considerably if we can keep tabs on this stuff, and if the correction centers will actually do what correction centers are supposed to do, and that's help the people overcome their demons, their downfalls, their weaknesses, and get out into society and be productive citizens. It's better to have them paying taxes and working than sitting in there sucking money out of the public, who in many cases don't even know what's going on. Yes, I know there's a lot of stuff that's suppressed. Fortunately, when you guys get out, you're willing to talk. You'll talk to the press, you'll talk to friends and family, you'll talk to politicians, and it makes a little bit of effect. Yeah, I know. We have a long road to travel, but as I said, we can't stop. We've got to keep fighting this. We got to keep checking on them. And social media is a good way to do it. As a matter of fact, the Washington Department of Corrections, they were concerned about how we were perceiving...
You have 60 seconds remaining.
The transvestites in the prison. We're saying on social media that we're giving the DOC a bad rap. Well, that's good. That forced them to put a little thing on their website, and at least they're aware of it. I don't know what they're going to do, but at least they're aware of it. Well, it's the time has come. But thanks for the call, and it's good to hear
you have 30 seconds remaining.
Good news, so make sure you keep in contact with the family, and if there's any issues that come up, be sure and send out an email to me. Oh, yeah, Yeah, they my audience is actually growing. There's people that are curious about what goes on in the prison. And I'm not one that's talking about something that happened 10 years ago. I'm one that's talking about stuff that happened like yesterday. Yep, and that information comes from you. Well, okay. Have yourself a wonderful day, and we'll talk later.
Thank you for using inmate call. Goodbye.
Hello, and welcome to AQS Inmate Call, and I am your host, Joel Wilborn. And this telephone conversation is based on a series of things that's been happening over the years, and I just want to kind of sum it all up in this podcast today. And I think the biggest thing is that the penal system, and this is all across the country, they're really not held to the same standards as other government agencies, and it can cause quite a bit of issues to family members and incarcerated people, even staff, because they just go unchecked. And the public, even though there's a lot of times we're just helpless, there's not a lot we can do, if we band together and we focus our attention on one thing, and we use several different methods to get to that and to reach our goal, we can do a lot for these guys. Now, what I mentioned in the phone call is there was a lot of complaints about the trans people that are going into prison. There's men out there who claim that they're trans women and that they should be housed in the women's facility, and that's where the state of Washington puts them. And then there's some sexual assaults and some inappropriate activity and stuff that goes on, and the information is known to the people that are close to the penal system, like the staff members and loved ones, and of course the incarcerated people. But the public doesn't hear about it, and so loved ones and even the incarcerated people will put posts out there on social media describing what was going on, and these people shouldn't be in there. And I've talked to trans people about these fake trans folks, and I've even spoken to some of these trans people who are fake, and it just it gives me a better understanding of what's going on in there, and the fact that we're putting that stuff out there and that the DOC is paying attention to it, it shows that our message is being heard. Now with me, I would go in and say, I want to help you. And then I'd get recommendations, and then people would tell me little things that were going on in their life. And one of them was Candace Balman. And she was talking about some of the discrimination she was getting for being she was a bisexual, or one of those that were she didn't really take a sexual gender. And so when she would be talking to a woman, they would think that she was fraternizing and messing around with other women and stuff. And so she was just going through a lot. So when I kind of happened upon her by accident, and she was able to do a really good interview and describe what was going on in there. And it was neat to get that out on social media. And now that she's out, there are other issues that she's dealing with, which is good to do a follow-up on. And I'll talk about her later. Now, when my fiance was in prison, I worked real hard after we discovered that she had cancer. And if they had performed the proper medical procedures, she would have been able to tackle that cancer earlier. And as everyone knows, the earlier you detect and treat cancer, the more likely you are to clear it up. And you compare that to not detecting it early and not having a time to get in there and perform the proper procedures or medical procedures, then you know that it could wind up turning into terminal cancer and kill the person, and That's what happened to Paula. But getting it early gives a person a better fighting chance. It's no guarantee. And so when we were fighting that she was going to fight the DOC over it and she needed clemency. Well, I remember picking her up and bringing her back home, to my home, and she wanted some marijuana. But she wasn't sure what she wanted. She told me that while she was in prison, she received some marijuana that really helped calm her nerves. Now, she needed mental health assistance. She needed physical assistance. She needed financial assistance. You know, when you have cancer, there's a lot of extra burdens that go down. I gave her as much assistance as I possibly could from the outside and from my position. But getting drugs in prison, as we all know, let's not play dumb, it's easy to do. You can get anything you want. And so if she needed the drugs, she could get them. And she was very happy with a certain type of marijuana that she got. Well, when we got to the marijuana shop, and in the state of Washington, it's legal to sell recreational marijuana. We walked in, and the staff, they were just wonderful, wonderful people. And one of the staff members asked if he could be assistant, and she was saying, I received this liquid marijuana when I was and when I was in pain and stuff, and I want to see if you have that. And he was offering her a few things. Well, we have this and this here and these different flavors, and she was like, no, that's not what it is. And he was saying, well, could you be a little more detailed? So she leaned in and she said, I received this when I was in prison. And he says, oh, yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. He goes back, he pulls out a product. She looks at it. Yes, that's what I was looking for. So I bought that for her. And she came home and she felt a lot more relaxed, because for her it was like a medical marijuana. And it just kind of put a thing in my head, you know. I know that there's contraband all over the prisons and that people are making good money off of it. And a lot of them do trades. You know, if somebody needs something, they'll buy something from commissary and give it to them. Like, oh, I need a new pair of shoes. Okay, I'll buy it from commissary, give you some shoes, and you just give me some marijuana. Well, this, not only, for me, I really didn't have any problem with her getting that and helping her feel better, because the DOC wasn't helping her out anyway. That's why she won a $9.9 million lawsuit against them. They failed. But you see how that has an effect on the outside. These people in these marijuana shops, they know what's going in and out of those prisons. And I'm sure if need be, they would cooperate with law enforcement to try to put a stop to it. But for a lot of them, that's profit for them. You know, John will buy some marijuana, give it to Susie, who will smuggle it into the prison, who then trades it, sells it to the incarcerated people in there, the customers, and then things are traveling outside the prison. And so that's that inside business. Now, these are people that go into prison. Some of them may not even be addicted to any drugs, and they may get this marijuana and think this is great, and then get out and things change. Of course, they're not going to be broadcasting that. The local shops aren't going to broadcast that. The law enforcement isn't. Some of them blackmail other people, but they're not going to broadcast it. So that stuff is kept hush. And while you're paying your taxes, it goes into these prisons that are supposed to prevent this stuff from happening. They'll come back with, we don't have the staff, we're underfunded, or there's too many prisoners to look out for, or we've got a lot of other concerns. I've brought this up many, many times. I've even gone to the state police and had a few people that were arrested, but it's only a dent. When I was in law enforcement doing undercover narcotics, I saw in one of the sheriff's office a little cartoon of a law enforcement official swatting flies. There was just hundreds of flies flying around him. He had two fly swatters, and he was just swinging, just hitting. But they were saying that the flies were like the drug epidemic. You can fight, but it's going to be out there. And they find clever ways of doing it. I know in Tennessee, we started getting a influx of illegal drugs. And what was happening is people were smuggling it across the border and they were getting caught. So they wound up putting it on a helicopter, and the helicopter would fly from south of the border into Tennessee, the airspace of Tennessee, and drop duffel bags of drugs into this lake. And then these people would float a little boat out there and pull the duffel bag of drugs in and go off and sell them. And I found that hard to believe when I was told that, because it was an informant said, hey, this is what's going on. But when law enforcement went out and took a look, yes, that's what was happening, and it was easy to catch them. But these drug people, there's a lot of money at stake, and they will actually pay staff members to figure out ways to get the drugs in, and they get them in very clever ways. So they'll get into the prison just as easily. And usually it's staff members, prison officials, that bring them in. This stuff is happening in the prison, and then when it gets out, you think the people just want to give up? They find ways of transporting it into prison themselves. So Susie may be working with Officer Joe, and then when Susie gets out, Susie decides, well, I can get a supply for cheaper because I've got a cousin that makes this stuff, and I can get him to Officer Joe, who will get him in there, and we can both get in this nice kickback. There it goes. The flow continues. Yes, that does happen. Yes, I've seen this. And this is what we are doing. We're paying these people. Obviously, they don't think they get enough. And then they're smuggling in drugs and smuggling out stuff. As Shane Goldsby said, they're going in bad and coming out badder. The prison system isn't working the way we want it to work. Now, here's something that's happened to me. I would constantly complain. I would send hundreds of emails. People would tell me something, I'd send an email, I'd make a call. I would just continuously bombard them. So the prison officials decided, let's assign him to one person. So anything that he sends in, any of his email, any of his calls, will be directed to her. And this person's name, Lisa Flynn. So I would send an email in and was saying, these people are being harassed, we need to work on this. And then they decided they were going to do an investigation of me, because I had all these women on my mailing list for my email, and I was contacting and getting calls by a lot of women. So there was these rumors going around that I was a predator. I think even the superintendent at the time said I was a predator in an email. And so, of course, they want to get rid of me. And I would say I'm not out to victimize these women. I just want them, along with male and trans, I don't care, to get treated properly, and you're not doing it. Well, before Lisa Flynn, policy was pretty good. I would follow policy, send things in, they would follow policy and follow up on it. She changed all that. So she would cancel my visitation, and I would send in an appeal, and she would answer the appeal. You violated multiple policies, and therefore you can never visit again. She permanently suspended my visitation. And she wasn't even in the visitation area. Her field of specialty wasn't visitation. And when I talked to her about medical issues, she would brush it off. When I talked to her about policy issues, every time I sent an email or a letter, it went to her. And she just had all this power. She just completely blocked me from everything. Well, I kind of figured I would just keep going back, testing the water, seeing what was going on. So since I was permanently suspended from visitation, I had a right to apply every 6 months. And they would have to go through the process, tell me why I was denied, and I could appeal. And so that was something that I was going to get used to. Well, I got bogged down with this cancer thing. Well, once the cancer thing with Paula was cleared up and she got out, got her money, I was able to go back and concentrate on some more stuff. So I said, I'm going to revisit this visitation thing. So I found Austin Kane over at the Washington State Penitentiary. I said, I'm going to apply to visit you. He said, oh, that's great. It'd be neat to have you come over here. So I applied, And he was really concerned. He kept checking up on it, and finally he calls over there himself and says, "Hey, if you don't approve this guy, then I'm gonna, my mother-in-law or somebody just came into a bunch of money, and I'm gonna sue you." Well, the official was looking at it and said, "Well, there's background check, but they put it on the back burner, but we don't know why." Well, I was approved, and we did some video visits, and then they came back and said, "No, after further investigation, we found out that you are a security threat, and we're withdrawing your visitation, but you can't appeal." So they listed the policy that I allegedly broke, and that policy shows that people can't be approved that are a safety and security risk. And then they were very specific about it, and then they gave me the appeal process, which is something Lisa Flynn never did. And so they followed policy. I was happy. That's what we want. So I sent in an appeal, and this gives me a chance to challenge that safety and security. And from what I gathered from her little vague letters and emails, is that my safety and security hold was put on because I violated multiple policies. Now, nobody on this planet is going to ban a person from visiting because they don't follow policies. I mean, their very issue for losing $9.9 million because they didn't follow policy and procedure. So that right there, I knew something was wrong. So they're looking into that now, and they gave me a timeline. They assigned it, gave me a case number. That's what they used to do before Lisa Flynn came along. So I'm happy they're getting back into that. I mean, I don't know whose bright idea it was to assign a person who knew nothing about the issues I was talking about, or even wanted to treat me as the enemy. I'm not the enemy of the state of Washington. And they know that because I work well with the governor's office. I work well with DAs, district attorneys, sheriff's department, local police, community leaders. I have no problem with them. It's just that Lisa Flynn and just that DOC. I think their intention was, since I was asking so much, just to have one person talk to me who could actually look into it. You know, what's your issue? Let me look into it and get back to you. That way I wouldn't be bombarding all these other departments. I'd be talking to the policy and procedure department and the health matters and visitation. I was talking to all of these guys, and they just wanted to centralize it. But she went way out in left field. This should clear up, and hopefully I'll have something good to say later on. I can get this dumb safety security policy nonsense knocked off. But you see, that's how their mismanagement works. That's what these folks do, and we got to keep an eye on it. I can broadcast this across social media all over the place, and I'll keep on doing that. But it's very rare that I compliment them. But once they got rid of this thorn, this is the way it should be done. And when I was having issues and they were doing it properly, I didn't say much about it because that's not an issue of mine. You do your job, I'm not going to mess with you. You don't do your job, or you brush me off, that's when I come into action. Now, to go back to Candace. I know when I was talking to Candace over several years, she said, when I get out, I want to help you. I want to do what you're doing. I want to help these folks that's in here. She knows firsthand. Her getting out and sitting before panels and talking to them, that has more clout than me. But I have a recording of her, and I'm going to pull it up here. And I want to play that for you so that you'll get an idea of what it is that she's going through here. Okay, we'll put this on.
And today's a monumental day. I no longer have to report to Department of Corrections. I'm officially off community custody. I was given a letter today from my community corrections officer that stated Ms. Balman has had 0 violations of supervision since her initial release from confinement. Ms. Balman has submitted 7 urinalysis testing every month of her supervision, and to this date she has not tested positive. Amazing, right? But I don't feel like I won. I don't feel like I beat the system. After 8 years of giving my life to a corrupt and abusive system, I feel that I have scars and festered wounds. Ones that are visible, but also ones that are hidden away and locked in darkness, just like I was. No, prison doesn't work. It traumatizes us, isolates us from community, and stifles personal development, hides away our ability to self-advocate, muzzles us, and strips us of hope. This is a bittersweet moment for me. Without the community and support that I had upon my release, I wouldn't be where I'm at. So I want to thank you, everyone who's been there for me.
Wow. That is Candace Balman. You can hear the interviews I've had with her and some of her statements. If you go to my YouTube channel, just look up her name. She is telling you what's going on in her mind. That's the only way we're going to know. We can't do analysis. We can't talk to experts. We need to talk to the source. If anybody knows what prison does to people, it's the people who've been in prison. And to a certain extent, those who work with those who are in prison. So that's something I just want to leave you with. She's a good person. She has a good heart, and she's working to better herself on the outside, and she's doing what she can to help other people. She is actually one of those that's doing what she said she was going to do and helping the community so that they won't follow in her footsteps. The system is corrupt. It's messed up. The DOC needs to be looked at. It's not putting people out into the community that are thriving. Those of us who are standing outside, giving them a hug once they walk through that gate, we are the ones that helping them get back into society. Which means you can just eliminate that prison. Why put the prison there? Just arrest the person, put them out there with people who will watch over them and guide them. People like Candace. I just don't know why we're wasting all our money on that corrupt system, where they're putting contraband in there, messing with policy, abusing their authority. To what end? Why? We don't need to make bad people badder. We need to make bad people gooder. And the only way to do that is to keep this stuff in the news, to keep it out there, and to let prison officials know that we know what's going on and they need to stop it and keep our community safe. This is a great way to reduce recidivism and to get people into the community who can help prevent crime by talking to folks and working with folks, because they have the tools they need to do it. What's going on right now is not working. It's obviously not working. Well, thanks for tuning in, giving me a little bit of your precious time. I hope you talk with your family members and your loved ones. Help them to overcome some of the demons that's bothering them. Sometimes just listening helps. And you'd be surprised what you can do as an individual. The only thing stopping you is you're just not taking the time to do it. Well, have yourself a magnificent day and go out and make beautiful memories for tomorrow.